Hello, it's the beginning of February now, so I thought it's been 2 weeks since I've given you a little update, so I thought I would give you another little update and show you how everything's getting on. To be honest with you, not a huge amount has been happening. The seeds haven't quite started to germinate yet, so there's no point really showing you those because they haven't popped through the surface yet, but it's only been a couple of weeks and it's still sort of quite cold. Yes, they've got a propagator lid over the top of them, but even still it's still a little bit cold, so I'm just going to wait for it just to get a little bit warmer. Hopefully by the time I do the next update in a couple of weeks time, some of them would have started to germinate and I can show you them to you. But there is still plenty to do in the garden at this time of year. You need to get everything ready, everything cleared and sorted before the big growing season starts again in about a month to 6 weeks time. So what I am doing at the moment is I am clearing and tidying out my strawberry bed. Now my strawberries, what I did when I got strawberries last year is I just planted them all the way around the outside of the bed that's behind me. We got some fruit from them last year, not a huge amount because it was their very first year, but they sent out loads and loads of runners. A lot of those have rooted themselves, which is fine because it's exactly what I wanted them to do. I wanted them to fill up all the spaces. But what I do need to do is any of the runners that have fallen down the side, I have done quite a few, but I've still got lots more to do. I'm cutting those runners off and putting them into pots. So if friends and family want some, then they can have some. So that's what I'm doing. Also what I'm doing is I'm clearing any dead leaves that are on the plants that are in the bed behind me. It's always a good idea to get rid of a load of debris, any leaves that have rotted and gone brown, and just to sort of clear everything out so that it stops sort of bugs and diseases harbouring around your plants, and it gets lots of fresh air in. We like things nice and clean and tidy, and so do plants. So let me show you first of all how my strawberries are getting on and how I am tidying those up. Hopefully you can see there are ones round here which I have started to do. That's a little weed. I'll take that out. It's also a good opportunity to get rid of any weeds, small weeds that are starting to grow. So I'm just going to do this little lot here. Hopefully you can see here, this is the rhubarb starting to come up. I'm not sure if, oh yes, that one is just in shot. You can see that one's coming up as well. It's much earlier than it normally does start to come up, but it's been warm. So all you need to do is you need to get a nice pair of either secateurs or a nice pair of sharp scissors. Find one of your strawberry plants and all you need to do is to cut off any of the runners that have gone, or any of the runners at all, and if you find any brown leaves or any of the leaves that are actually quite large, you can always cut those off. Don't worry about just leaving sort of a little bit of a plant. You will get lots of little new leaves starting to grow up, and it's good because if we do get a frost, it will be absolutely fine. Hopefully you can see this one here. I don't know whether you can see that one here. There's a leaf that has just started to grow up, so that's fine. So just find the crown, so the top section of it, and just cut all the leaves off. Just clear it all out. So I've got loads of these to do, so I will carry on. But you can see I'm being quite robust, quite brutal, and they don't mind at all because you're just getting rid of all the rubbishy bits. Whilst you're doing this, if you do find any little new little plants, then you can either just pop them in where they are, just make a hole with your finger and just push it down, or you can pot it up, and if you've got somewhere else that you would rather it be, then you can pop it there. So I'll just finish doing this little one, and then I will show you how the strawberries are getting on in the greenhouse. Again, what I've done with those is I've gone through them, and if there are any brown leaves on them or any really, really large leaves, I just tidied them up. That's basically all we're doing. So let's go in the greenhouse and see how those ones are getting on. You can see that I've done lots and lots of the strawberries here. In fact, I've only got a few more left to go, but let me just show you this one here. You'll look at this and you'll go, oh, that doesn't look very good, but the leaves just need to be removed. So you can either use your secateurs, or sometimes it's actually quite easy just to pull them off. Where have I? Oh, there they are. I knew I'd put them somewhere. So I'm just going to cut any of the bits I don't want. You know that it's still alive because in here you can see new growth growing. Okay, there is a little hole here which I will just fill up with the compost. So a lot of my strawberry plants, excuse me, a lot of my strawberry plants, I have trimmed all the leaves off, so there's just this small little bit showing. That, don't worry about it, it will be absolutely fine. So that will just go over there with the rest of them, and I've got a few more down the bottom to do, which I will do when it starts to get a little bit dark outside. But what we do need to sow now there are some seeds that can be sown in February. There aren't a huge amount, and most of my February seeds I am saving and not sowing until the middle of this month, but the broad beans can go in now because they don't mind it being a little bit on the chilly side. So let's go and find a space in the bed and sow the very first seeds out in the beds for this growing season. Here I am in the cage, and hopefully you can see these little green shoots coming up. These are the garlic, and they're all doing really, really well. They're growing fabulously. What I thought I would do is I would grow 2 lines of broad beans next to them. Now, broad beans need to be spaced about 9 inches apart from each other. And if you've got more than one row, then I would suggest you do it. Well, if you can manage about 12 inches, then do 12 inches. But if you can't, then 9 inches will be absolutely fine. So the variety of broad beans I've got here, they're from Mole Seeds, and they're called Aquadulce, which I have grown before, and they've grown really, really well. Now, broad bean seeds are very large, but they're very easy to plant. So I'm going to shake some out into my hand, and before, oh look, everything's too far away. It's like I've got long arms. Before you start sowing them, just make sure, they say in a lot of books, prepare the bed. And sometimes you go, what on earth do you mean by prepare the bed? Basically, preparing the bed is making sure that you've dug it, there's no weeds in it, and it's nice and even. Okay, so you've dug it through, you've got rid of any large stones, and digging it through like this actually helps aerate the soil as well. So it helps to get the oxygen in as well, which will again help the seeds to grow. So I'm just gonna dig along here. If you're worried that you won't get a straight line, then put in a string line so that you can get it nice and straight. But I've got this board here, so I'm hoping that I've got the board straight. So I should theoretically end up with a nice straight line of broad beans. So there's a few seeds in there, a few weeds in there, but not many. So we'll just level it off a bit, and hey presto, it's done. Now, when I plant these, what I'm going to do is I'm not going to do two dead straight lines, one like this and one like this. I'm going to I will still have two rows, but I will zigzag them. So I'll put a seed here, then I'll put one there, and I'll sort of go up and down like this. Okay, and that way what will happen is as the plants grow, they'll actually start supporting each other. Now, I'm not going to plant one seed on its own. I will actually plant two seeds. Now, the germination rate is usually quite good, but when you're outside, they do tend to, the germination rate is a little bit lower. If you want to, you can start these off inside, and to be honest with you, I usually do. When I had the allotment, I would always start them off in the greenhouse and then move them outside. But because I've now got the raised beds and the soil is looser and easier to manage, and there are fewer squirrels about. We do have one squirrel actually, but it can't get in here because there's a cage. There were loads down the allotment, so when you did plant them outside, the squirrels would run off with them. So I'm going to don't push them down straight away, because otherwise you'll forget where you put them. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to rest them on top of the soil. And I suppose because I've put them in a zigzaggy pattern, they're about 6 inches from each other. So there we go. If you want to do more than, what I'm doing, then by all means, it depends, how much you like them. So let's just do a few more. And then I will show you a slightly closer up view of these when I've done them, so you can see them. But you'll just have to take my word for it as they're going in. Okay, nearly there. 2 there. 2 there. 2 there. 2 there. Oh look, I've got the right amount. Okay. Excellent. So let me show you just a little bit closer what those look like. Hopefully you can see what they look like, that I've done 2 and 2 and 2 and 2, and they are in a little zigzaggy pattern. Now, the reason why I put them on top of the soil before I push them down was because if you get distracted, then you may well forget where you got to. So once they're all laid out on the soil, then you just need to push them down. They do need to be pushed down about 2 inches. So get 2 fingers, one on each seed, and just push them down basically as far as your fingers will go, the length of your fingers. So that's all I'm going to do. Push them down. And if you've dug the soil over well and taken out any hard stones, then they should go down quite easily. Now, once you have finished pushing all your seeds in, then what you'll need to do is you'll need to just cover in those holes, which is not very difficult to do. Sorry, excuse my bottom. I've just got to do the last few here. There we go. And then all you do just to fill in those holes is just, if you don't want to use your hand, if you want to use a rake, then that's fine, but just smooth the soil over the top, just like that. And then that will cover them up, and it won't be too hard for them to push through. Now, you will need to obviously make sure that you label them. I've got some of these lovely labels here. I've got lots of them. Simon, oh gosh, what's his surname? I can't remember what his surname is, but Simon the Woodman and his wife, they made these for me. I asked them to, and they made them, and she said, which ones do you want? So I sent them a list, and this one says broad beans. So I'm going to pop that in at the end, and then when I'm sowing other seeds, then I will know exactly what's growing in this area. So before I carry on with my strawberries, my potatoes have arrived, so let me show you those. Well, my potatoes arrived and I am growing 4 different varieties of potatoes. I am growing, I've got to try and remember these, Sarpomera, obviously, pink fir apple. Oh, good Lord, what are the other ones? I can't remember. Foremost and something else. Oh, bother. I can't remember. I'll write it on the bottom. They're inside, and if I took the labels, then I would forget which ones. So anyway, my potatoes arrived. So what if you have ordered potatoes and yours have arrived, now is the time to start chitting them. Chitting them is basically a technical word for letting them start to develop shoots. Now, the shoots you want are short, stumpy shoots. You don't want long, spindly shoots, because if you get long, spindly shoots, then when you put them in the ground, they will snap off. Where the short, stumpy shoots, try saying that too many times, they won't. They're a lot more robust. Now, the way to get short, stumpy shoots is to grow or put your potatoes near light. If they have to stretch for light, then that is why you get long, spindly shoots. Now, they need to go in a frost-free place, which is why it can be a cool place. It doesn't need to be heated or anything like that, which is why a windowsill is usually quite good. It does get cold during the night, but you won't get any frost. So that is the perfect place, and it's right next to the light, and they can see the light and they don't have to stretch for it. So on one of my windowsills, I have got 5 of these trays. And if you follow me on Twitter, you will see that I actually did put the photo up of them all there. And I also put the varieties as well, but I will put it down the bottom, so don't worry. So these are my pink fir apples. These are a main crop. So these are ones that you will harvest later on. You get first earlies, second earlies, mids sometimes you get, and lates, which is sometimes called a main crop, but sometimes you just get first earlies and main. So it just depends. The first and the second earlies, I personally find are best grown in a big tub, because they usually tend to be smaller potatoes, and if you sow them in the open ground, then they do tend to get lost quite easily, whereas main crop ones do much better in open ground. So all you need to do is, once you've got your bag of potatoes, if you haven't ordered them, then your local garden centres should have loads of them now. So go in and just choose a load, whatever ones you want. So you just need to open the bag and just put them single layer, there is 1 or 2 on top, but not many, in a tray. These are plastic trays. If you want to use a metal tray, anything, as long as it's something that doesn't sort of absorb liquid. So a cardboard tray or a cardboard box will not be any good, okay? And just leave them like that, and you will see, now some of these have started to, they've been on the windowsill for about 10 days now, I think. So they have started to grow little shoots. These will get much, much bigger. So there they are. Now, sometimes what people do is, if they've got a big one, a big seed potato, is they will cut it in half. That's not something I do, but because I worry that once you've cut it, the side that's been cut might go mouldy, and therefore you might lose the entire potato, and therefore you've lost a plant. So, but if you do it and you find it works for you, then absolutely fine, but it's not something that I do. So these will stay on the windowsill until about the middle of March, middle to the end of March, where I will start to plant them out. Some of them will go in the beds, and the rest of them will go in big buckets. I've got really big buckets that I will put them in, which will be great. But when I do that, I will show you. Well, I think that's going to be it. I've got about another hour, I think, out here until it starts to get too dark before I can see what I'm actually doing. So I will carry on with my strawberries and see how far I get with those. Well, I hope you've found what I've shown you useful today. That's just a little update of how things are getting on. It's all getting there, slowly but surely. Let me just have a quick peek at the seeds, just in case. I did look at them. Oh, they started to germinate. They hadn't yesterday. Actually, only one lot has. Let me give you a quick little sneaky peek. It's the sweet peas. Okay, so let me just take this off. Sorry if it goes a bit jiggly. Jiggle it just a little bit. Okay, so hopefully, there we go. There's the sweet pea, the first one that is showing through. As you can see, nothing else is germinating yet, but it's still early. So I'm not worried at all. Now, somebody did say, please make sure you label them. Obviously I did, but I didn't mention it. So don't worry. These are the other ones in here, which nothing has started to happen yet. Just keep them damp. Don't overwater them. And hopefully there's nothing in this one at the front, which is why there's no label there. So hopefully very soon they will be back and they will be growing. So I've got to try and attach this now, so I do apologise again if it goes a bit jiggly wiggly. Oh, the thing underneath always gets caught and I don't know why. Anyway, woo. See, this is why I should never be trusted. Well, we'll just leave it like that. I know it's wonky, but don't worry, if I stand like that, then it'll be all right. Okay, so anyway, I'll wait. So that's how everything is getting on at the moment. I hope you found that useful, and I will see you in a couple of weeks where we'll have lots of seeds to sow. Bye bye.